Today we are talking about understanding flow in tattoo design. You ever look at a tattoo that just perfectly flows? It just looks so good when a tattoo moves with the shapes of the body. But understanding the basics of flow can be tricky. Not enough, and your design could look flat. Or add too much, and your design could look like a plate of spaghetti. But the trick is having a solid way to sketch and compare flow lines for yourself. And in the end, you'll be adding flow to your designs even before you start drawing them. We are Tattoo Design School, and we specialize in the artwork that goes into great tattoos. We've tattooed thousands of clients over the last 20 years, and today we're going to show you how we use flow over 3 real-life projects. First, we design an Oni and Fire. Next, we design wild roses that flow up the side of the body. And last, we design a huge flowing octopus. But let's go over some theory first and make sure to hit the subscribe button. Alright, so to get started, let's first look at some tattoo designs and paint these arrows right on top. And these arrows are called flow lines. Now, normally you would draw flow lines at the beginning of your design, and you'll see us doing that later, but for now, the goal is to visualize flow. Now, some tattoos are flat, and that works fine for certain designs, but other tattoos are built almost entirely out of flow. With this dragon, you can see the arm, clouds, and horn all follow the same direction. A flow line might show the line of action, which shows the movement or pose of a character or element. But most of the time, your flow lines will just show you the basic feeling of how things are moving. And with practice, you can deconstruct most designs into a flow pattern. And most of the time, when looking at tattoos, you'll end up doing this in your head, because understanding the flow in your favorite tattoo designs can be really helpful. Okay, so let's now go to the beginning of the design process and look at why certain flow lines suit certain areas of the body. Flow lines emerge from the body in many different ways, whether it be from the contour of the body or the way a body part might bend or twist. So the flow lines near the collarbone might point towards this shape, or the ribs might lead to this shape, or maybe this cresting shape along the hip bone. But maybe it's a shape that comes from the muscles of the shoulder, or the muscles of the tricep. And this might match the direction of the muscles of the forearm, and you can start to see how all of this creates a flow pattern. Or maybe the flow lines capture the bend of the forearm, or maybe the bend of a knee. So knowing all this, you can start to see how tattoo artists design flow patterns even before they start drawing their designs. But this next part is critical to sort of tie everything together. When it comes to the artwork, you want to match the behavior of the content with the flow of the body. And that sounds like a lot, but it's actually pretty simple. So what do I mean by behavior? If you're designing water, it probably wants to face forward and crest in these big arcing shapes. But fire and smoke might want to trail behind. Wind might want to be in a circular shape, but it can also be used to create negative space over these long sweeping areas. And almost everything you design will want to behave in a certain way. So a recipe for designing great flow might look like, first, understand how the content you're designing wants to behave, and then matching that with the flow lines that best suit the body part that you're working on. And I feel the main reason that flow looks great in tattoos is because flow feels intentional. It makes a tattoo look fitted and designed for a specific body part on that specific person. And that will always make a tattoo design feel more customized and impressive. Okay, so that shows us some basics, but I like to learn from examples, so let's apply some of that theory over these next 3 projects. This is the Oni and Fire tattoo design. Our client would like an Oni from Japanese mythology, but done in a more modern anime style. And to get some movement and energy into this design, we will use flow in the form of fire done in negative space. Now, fire naturally wants to move upward. It might look good trailing towards the back of the arm, so I decided to use the shape of the tricep and the shoulder as my guide. I decided that I would freehand the Oni on paper and then later add the negative space fire on the computer. And most of my freehand drawings are done in the same way. I start out with my hardest pencil and slowly build up the structure. I'm trying to prevent myself from going too heavy at the beginning of the drawing. I don't want to lock into the final shapes without trying out a few ideas first. I then go in with some light shading and follow that with my softest pencil, which I use as a liner and a shader. And I'm also using my eraser to make small highlights, and I'm using my mechanical pencil to add definition to the shading. I freehand a lot of my tattoo designs, and we will have a video that goes much deeper into this technique. After my drawings are done, I scan them into the computer and then make a few small changes, and now it's time to add our flowing fire. Adding negative space elements in the computer allows us to quickly try out a few ideas before committing to one. And if our client would prefer something different, it'll be easy for us to go back and try out some new ideas. So even though this Oni head is a large static shape, this fire gives us a flowing element that adds a lot of energy to the design. And the Oni and Fire tattoo design will have its own video on the channel as well, where we go into much greater detail. But what about a design where the entire piece flows in a branching pattern? This is the Wild Roses tattoo design. The brief for this design is fairly simple. Our client would like a large tattoo of roses starting on her front and then flowing towards her upper back. And she would also like the roses to be surrounded by rosebuds, leaves, and stems. Now, all of those elements can look bushy and chaotic, so to get them moving together in a beautiful way, we will use flow. To start, we'll paint some flow lines on our blank in a fairly simple pattern and have them branch out in a few places. To refine this flow pattern, I paint these lines onto a 3D model in Blender, which is something that I've been doing lately. Now, this step is definitely not required, but I do find it useful because this ends up being the shape that I use as the foundation for my rough composition. I then generate a bunch of roses and rosebuds and make sure they all share the same light source, since lighting is a critical part to this design, and I then drag and drop these elements over the foundation. Then I paint in some of the details and transitions in between these elements. And now that we have a rough composition, I'll begin to do my final detail pass on paper. To do that, I print this huge design over 3 sheets of paper and make sure the opacity for the prints is around 10%. And I can now use the prints as a layer to draw directly on top of and start doing my final details. This technique is called overdrawing, and it can be really helpful when you want your final artwork to perfectly match the shape of what you designed on your blank. I scan these drawings back into the computer and then stitch them together. And after making a few small changes to the artwork, I check to see how the design looks on our blank. And if you'd like to learn more about the Wild Roses tattoo design, it will have its own video on the channel as well. But what happens when we have to design something that is truly chaotic? This is the giant octopus tattoo design. The idea is to have an octopus starting on the thigh and then moving down the leg. And I know from experience that managing 8 tentacles can get pretty messy. So to help organize all that chaos, we will use flow. I decide to split the tentacles so 4 go behind the top half of the leg and the other 4 go down towards the bottom. I then designed the tentacles on the bottom to move together in a branching S-curve. To get the first concept, I sketched some ideas onto a model in Blender. And even though it's pretty rough, this still gives me a good starting point to work from. I then begin the process of creating the rough composition. Now, the details in this phase don't have to be perfect, we can save that for the next stage. And since I want to keep the main shapes from my rough composition, I'm using overdrawing. And just like before, I'm building up my shading from lightest to darkest and finishing one sheet at a time. And I should mention, it really doesn't matter if you choose to do your final detail pass on paper or with a tablet. It's really the same process either way, so do whatever feels best for you. And after the drawings are done, I scan them back into the computer, and after making a few small changes, we have a solid design to show our client during the next consultation. And to get an even deeper look into this design, it will have its own dedicated video on the channel as well. So that's 3 projects demonstrating the techniques discussed in this video. Flow is a living thing being designed for a living canvas, and it's sometimes difficult to explain, which is something that I learned while writing this video. But flow has a lot to do with how a tattoo intuitively feels, and the best way to train your intuition as an artist is through practice. So practice by doing the most basic drawings with the most simple flow over and over. But for now, I hope this video helped. I thank you for watching, and I wish you all the best in your future projects. Hey, if you got anything out of this, then help us out by hitting the like button and subscribe to our channel. We come out with new videos often, and make sure to hit the bell icon so you don't miss out. And if you're serious about creating the best art possible for your tattoos, then go to tattoodesignschool.com and check out the masterclass. This is everything I wish I knew when I was first starting out, and it will push you to create artwork you didn't think was possible. This is the perfect investment in your tattoo career, so check out the masterclass at tattoodesignschool.com. But most importantly, share this video with the person you know who's interested in artwork and tattoos. And we'll see you in the next one.